We are the Pop Gorillas. This is the show where we drop a spoiler-free review of anything from pop culture in less time than it takes to listen to a song. Recently, I've watched all of Wellington Paranormal, seasons 1, 2 and 3, a spin-off from the What We Do in the Shadows movie, with the clever Jermaine Clement and talented Taika Waititi, the brains behind the concept and series. The first season comprises of 6 episodes, and they are stuffed full of subtle, dry, sardonic humour, as they are paranormal entities. Most of it hits the mark. Only episode 2, Cop Circles, disappoints. My favourite parts of each episode in season 1, irregardless of Entity of the Week shenanigans, is undoubtedly the running jokes concerning Sergeant Macca's briefings and his ever-evolving security entry system into a secret office. Genius. It's absolutely beyond me how Officer Kyle, the E is silent, Minogue, ever qualified for the police force. But I, for one, am glad he did, because his buffoonery is the chief source of amusement for me. The episode highlight of season 1 is undoubtedly episode 5, A Normal Night, due to the sheer range of creativity on display. Vampires, clowns, goths, haunted plastic bags. It's abnormal. In season 2, Minogue continues to be the standout character amongst the Wellington Paranormal unit, although O'Leary's deadpan monotone delivery and perennial politeness is a source of much mirth too. The effects this season are impressive and keep up with the more ambitious and expansive paranormal activity the special unit has to contend with, including the aquatic Taniwa in episode 1 and the ghost cop in episode 3. Equally welcome in season 2 is the expanded role for Parker, who brings a flustered Murray from Flight of the Conchords energy to proceedings. Episode highlight in season 2, episode 5. The haunting of the 85 Nissan 300ZX is absolutely hilarious in its skewed Stephen King-esque ridiculousness. On to season 3, released earlier this year. Speaking of Rhys Darby, he shows up for an always welcome cameo in episode 2, Team Miero, as his lupine What We Do in the Shadows character, Anton. This performance left me with one burning question though. Just when is the obvious casting as Hugh Jackman's schlubby brother ever going to materialise? I don't know if I just didn't notice it before, or whether it's an addition for season 3, but I absolutely loved the revamped and metamorphosising newspaper headlines for the opening credits. Highlights include: Vampires should wear masks, says PM. Airbnb ghost leaves negative feedback. Divorcee ghost haunts half of ex-husband's house. All backs pick Welf. Can only play once a month. Brooklyn dad blames farts on haunted pants. Parker continues his ascent to PU MVP. His role in resolving the case in episode 3 Fear Factory is particularly hilarious, as is his role in the season opener The Invisible Fiend, the highlight of the season. The whole episode is operating at another level, especially the Bruce Campbell level of acting against nothing, by which Minogue and O'Leary excel. Thank you to Mainstream Matt for putting me onto this show. I highly recommend everyone else goes and checks it out too. Make sure you subscribe, as you never know when the Pop Gorillas will strike next.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Come on, bub, for old times' sake, huh?
Harley Quinn, nice to meet ya.
Pardon my French. Fuck those fuckers.
Favorite Marvel character ever, but you should never meet your heroes because honestly, he's a bit of a dick.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat.
I am inevitable. Hulk smash!
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion TV and movie reviews for shows that are based on comic books. Myself will be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. And remember, with an average podcast comes no responsibility. Now, Chris, we're journeying back to the MCU. What are we going to review this week?
Well, Dave, we are going back to 2017, and it's a sequel to one of my favourites. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, my friend.
Awesome. Now, What are your memories? When did you watch this one for the first time?
I think I watched it in two. I've not seen either of the Guardians films at the cinema, and I actually watched it in the wrong order. I watched the second one first, and then went back because the first one I'd put on continually, and I could never get past that bit where they're sort of playing tag ball and everyone's capturing each other in the city at the start when Quill gets caught, and I just couldn't get past that bit. And you meet Rocket and everything, and I'm just like, no, it just did nothing for me. I don't know why. It just didn't feel like a bit of me. But
looks a bit Star Trek, that does.
Yeah, and
when
you know, yes, exactly, and you know how much I love Star Trek, Dave. So maybe that's what it was. So, I just couldn't hit with it. And anyway, me and Sam were like, right, let's watch it. And we did. We watched it. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, right, we've got to watch the first one. Watched the first one, and it was amazing. And I'm like, oh, what an idiot. And I've watched them in chronological order anyway since. But yeah, I've really, really enjoyed them. I just gutted and never went to the cinema because I think the soundtracks of the Guardians films, especially because of Quill's 80s and Earth link and his Walkman, is just some of the best in the MCU, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it was really good. And I don't know, so I saw this one at the cinema. I mean, I was fully immersed into the MCU. I'm sure I told this story the last time when we did the first one, but I had no expectations for this. Chris, Guardians of the Galaxy is this real fringe comic as far as I was concerned. And I was never into the cosmic things, the cosmic part of the MCU. I'm a lot more comfortable, obviously, with the X-Men, which I've told you many times before, but those street level characters as well. So the likes of Daredevil, the likes of Iron Fist, you know, I like those kind of characters where, you know, they don't feel all powerful and cosmic and can fly through space. I don't know why. I love Star Wars so much, but for the MCU cosmic stuff, it just never really grabbed me. So yeah, I had no expectations for that first one, but the trailers were the thing that got me in. I mean, you've got Hooked on a Feeling, which, you know, I'd loved since I heard it on Reservoir Dogs, and I just couldn't wait for that first one. So I absolutely loved it, and I was chomping at the bit for this second one as well, and watched it on the big screen, and, you know, you always get a little bit of a bump as well, don't you? It always looks better on the big screen for a movie like this. And so, yeah, I remember really enjoying it. The sequel as well. Probably not as much as the first one, but I certainly enjoyed it.
No, and look, I get it, Dave. I think Chris Pratt's amazing. So I think when you watch it and all the supporting characters, Dave Bautista, you know, I've got an argument on that. I think I mentioned it when we did the original review, but I actually think Dave Bautista's probably him, and I think Cena is better than The Rock. I think it's Bautista, Cena, and then The Rock. Forget Hulk Hogan, Dave, because he's awful, but as the best actor to come out of no, I think Bautista has got proper acting. He cut his teeth a little bit better, and I've seen him in a few things where he is pretty good. The Rock is amazing. I love The Rock. I watch his Instagram stuff every day. He's training. If you ever want to get in the gym, just follow The Rock. He's such a good guy and humble, but his acting's not got any better, Dave. He's just basically an extension of his wrestling character, and he's now the biggest movie star, most well-paid one in the world, isn't he? So what do I know? But yeah, The Rock is an entity on his own, but I do think Bautista is just better as an overall actor.
Have you seen Army of the Dead, the Zack Snyder
Not yet,
movie?
No.
Yeah, I like the newer Blade Runner as well. He was in that. I'm not sure about Bautista outside of Drax and how good an actor he actually is. But what I will say, I absolutely love him as Drax.
Yeah.
I just think he's fantastic. He's perfect for that role. And, you know, to get him all done up in the makeup and everything. Actually, for this movie, they got it down to 90 minutes to get all his makeup on. For the first movie, it was like 3 hours or something. And it was like, oh, Christ, can you imagine that? You know, that's all just at the beginning, and presumably it's not that straightforward to get off as well at the end of the day. So, yeah, he's suffered for his art a little bit there.
He has. I will sort of backtrack slightly. I do think John Cena's got some great comedy timing as well, Dave. A lot of stuff that we've mentioned just John Cena before on air and the VHS, but I do think he's got some great comedy timing. I think his performance in the new Fast and Furious, which is out on the 24th of June, Dave, even though it's supposed to be serious will probably be some of his best comedic acting, but not on purpose. Even though I love that franchise, it just makes no sense. He's actually Vin Diesel's brother, Dave, in it, which
right.
There's never been a mention of him in the 8 other movies we've seen before, but all of a sudden his brother pops up and they're now baddies against each other, which I'm sure they'll turn him good by the end of it, Dave, and he'll come into the fast team like everyone else does who becomes a baddie and then switches to the good side once they've sort of seen the light in that franchise.
Nice. Now, I will, Chris, just give you another little tidbit here. Again, we don't do the whole comic background or anything, but Ego the Living Planet, he is a thing, like a big old planet in the MCU. But at the time, when James Gunn wanted to use him as a character in this, he wasn't strictly owned by Marvel, or Marvel Studios, if you like, because he had ties to the Fantastic Four. So he's really owned by 20th Century Fox. Obviously now it wouldn't matter, would it? But at the time, it was owned by a different company. And so they had to go to Fox and ask, can we use Ego the Living Planet? And then they agreed, and there was a little bit of an exchange. So Fox said yes, but can we just have creative freedom over Negasonic Teenage Warhead's set of powers in Deadpool that came out in 2016? So there is kind of a link between these two movies there.
Oh, nice one, Dave. That's a good little spot as well. I think what I like about these movies, and I know we're going to get into it, is I do like what James Gunn does, which gives me a lot of hope for the new Suicide Squad, Dave, which he's going to be out soon. So I like his filmmaking. I like what he does on the screen. So I'm interested, because especially it's a DC property, which I like the first Suicide Squad, despite what other people felt. It was like our love for Venom, I think, the first Suicide Squad. You either loved it or hated it, but I actually quite enjoyed it. And he's got Margot Robbie in hot pants, Dave, so...
you know what? I was just going to say, do you love Suicide Squad the movie, or do you love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and also Will Smith as Deadshot? I mean, those two were good, and then everything else was not great.
And it's funny because I do watch the scene where she tries on her outfit, Dave, at the start, and Will Smith's Deadshot thing where they give him the gun and he smells the bullet when he's having a pop at that gun. He's like, delete my search history. I always watch that on YouTube. So yeah, you might be right, Dave. I do get, as long as I get more turned on about Margot Robbie than Will Smith with a gun, Dave, then I'm okay. That's fine.
Nothing wrong with that if people do, by the way. But
no, I don't mean because of Will Smith, Dave, because he's a fine-looking guy. I meant the smell of bullets, but there you go.
Oh, right, yeah.
Maybe explain yourself more, Chris, but there you go.
Awesome. Now, Chris, should we get into our trailer?
Let's go.
Hope you're ready. It'll be here any minute. Is that a rifle?
You don't know what a rifle looks like?
It's just swords were your thing and guns were mine. But I guess we're both doing guns now. I just didn't know that.
Well, that's intense.
I see it within you. Fear, jealousy, betrayal. It is our duty to cleanse the universe of this weakness.
You know, they told me you people were conceited douchebags, but that isn't true at all.
Dude! I'm using my wrong eye.
Groot, put your seatbelt on! So we're saving the galaxy again? Yep. Awesome! We're really gonna be able to jack up our price if we're two-time galaxy savers. Yes! Sometimes the thing you're searching for your whole life, it's right there by your side all along.
You're right.
All you do is yell at each other.
We're not friends. No, we're family. Except maybe her.
After all these years, I've found you.
And who the hell are you?
I'm your dad, Peter.
In 2004, Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax, Rocket and Baby Groot are renowned as the Guardians of the Galaxy. Aisha, leader of the Sovereign race, has the Guardians protect valuable batteries from Obelisk, an interdimensional monster, in exchange for Gamora's estranged sister Nebula, who was caught attempting to steal the batteries. After Rocket steals the batteries for himself, the Sovereign attacks the Guardians' ship with a fleet of drones. A mysterious figure destroys the drones, and the Guardians crash land on a nearby planet. There, this figure reveals himself as Quill's father, Ego, and invites Quill, Gamora and Drax to his home planet. Rocket and Groot remain behind to repair the ship and guard Nebula. Now, Chris, what do you reckon to the opening of this movie?
Well, Dave, nobody's saying the fact that Peter Quill's dad is actually Captain America, or should I say US Agent's dad, Dave, as well. Sorry, that's a terrible reach now. But anyway, no, I do think it starts great. You get the one-liners again. The whole team are back. You're getting this whole dimension about Quill's background because you get... I've got to say, Dave, we always praise Ant-Man and Michael Douglas, the de-aging. I think the de-aging of Kurt Russell's pretty good when he's with the mum. The mum, the mum is her out of the In-Betweeners, isn't she? The girl they meet in Ibiza.
That's right.
Remember you saying at the time, the one who does the horrendous Manchester accent on that Ibiza series on Netflix. But yeah, so that's pretty good, and you get that at the start. But I do think his de-aging is brilliant on him. I do. That's when he looks more like his son Wyatt than ever. I think that chin, Dave, and you never really renowned Kurt Russell for having the massive chin, but because they de-aged him, it really stands out like his son's does when he's Captain America. And he's like he getting a cheapo Chris Evans. But no, I think he starts really well, and I think the whole backstory with Peter, and again, the music is brilliant. The music is so good. They're not really songs that I would put on, like I've got my Alexa sat in the garden, Dave, and I put stuff on. But when I listen to them, I'm like, these have got to go on my playlist. And so many times the MCU films I've got now, and the whole soundtracks on, and there's some brilliant songs.
Yeah, I think the way they start off, I think is brilliant. You know, you've obviously got Baby Groot there. You know, Groot or Big Groot had kind of been splintered and everything, and we saw in the end credit of the first movie, you know, we got this little seedling and was becoming Baby Groot, and he's kind of grown up a little bit. And you can see they're getting ready to defend these kind of batteries and whatever, you know, and the way they kind of layer in the music and the action and everything, and it's all just quite funny because, you know, you've got ELO's Mr. Blue Sky playing there, and you're just following around Groot, and he's just boogieing away to the music, and you've got all the action happening in the background, and I think it's fantastic. And, you know, Rocket's trying to get the speakers going, isn't he? And he's saying, well, you know, it's for Quill's music. And Drax is like, well, it's not really the most important thing right now. And Quill's like, yeah, I'm kind of with Drax on this one. So you can see they're kind of like this bickering family again. So I think the way it starts is really good. And you get the old kind of Captain Kirk tropes as well with Quill, don't you? Because when he's speaking to the High Priestess Aisha, you know, they're talking about this race of genetically bred people, so everyone's done in birthing pods. He's talking about, well, you know, I like to do it the old-fashioned way, and she seems quite interested in that. And then he has a look over to Gamora, and he's like, oh yeah, that'd be disgusting. So you know, I kind of like the little thing with you know, Rocket. He's practicing, he can't quite wink out of the right eye. The one that he means to, he's winking out the other one, but he ends up nicking the batteries there. I think the start is absolutely fantastic.
No, and you're right, the bit with Groot is brilliant. I love the bit when Drax has got a bit of a kick and ends up on the floor and Groot's in front of him, pretending, and he's not looking at him. And Drax goes to move and he stops. And it's like a dog, innit, when you do it with a dog and they like look and they look away. It's clever, all that, because the cinematography is brilliant, because obviously it's like all zoomed out with the blurred out at the background as Groot's just dancing away. And I think you're right, the stuff with Gamora when he's like, oh, that would be disgusting, and she's looking. It's good. It's really good. And then obviously, I think they get up with Nebula, don't they? And again, though, Dave, Nebula still nasty. I know in the Infinity War saga and that, she comes in her own. But it's good to have that foil. And you've got everything, Dave. I mean, Yondu comes on later, don't he? They've hired him when they realise that they've stolen the batteries. And he's great. Michael Rooker's brilliant in this. I think he gets his redemption in this movie. But it's a bit strange about because Stallone's there and he's basically, they don't speak to him because there's some child trafficking, which wasn't his fault, but he exiles him and everything. So I think that's a good way to sort of, because he was sort of a baddie in the first one, even though he laughed at the end when Quill switched everything and was laughing because he brought him up. I think it's such a good dynamic in this one. It expands on his character a lot.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, look, Michael Rooker basically plays himself in everything. He's in Mallrats. He's obviously in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. He's Merle from Walking Dead. He's the same guy every time, but he's sort of brilliant as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, in the first movie, you just think he's a bit of a nasty piece of work, but there's something not quite right. Because he lets Quill get away with swapping out the stone for the little troll thing. And he just, like you say, he just laughs at it. Whereas they'd played him up as this bit of a badass. And you obviously don't know quite what's going on when Stallone turns up. You're not sure what's going on, but it seems like, he's broke the code. Dealing with this child trafficking, Ravagers, they just don't do that. So he's stepped over the line, so he's kind of been exiled. And obviously we'll get to hear more about that and how that plays out later.
Yeah, and I think he's good there. I didn't realise it's Sean Gunn, and he plays that Kraglin, who's Yondu's assistant.
Yeah.
I've got to say, and I know we're not going to jump in, but there's a few bits at the end, get me, Dave, a bit of a lump in the throat, so ridiculous, but... I honestly, I just think it's got everything that I want in an MCU movie. It's got the humour, it's got the bit of angst with the characters. I think it's nice that they expand upon Quill, because he is the main one, really, Dave, in the whole series, and he's the leader. And coincidentally, we couldn't have timed this any better, because just this past week, they've announced the Guardians of the Galaxy game, Dave, for the PlayStation and Xbox and PC. And nice. It looks really good. It's all centered around Quill, but you've got the other supporting characters, but it's actually a single player game, whereas the Avengers is what they call a GAS game, GAAS, which is a games like a service game, where it never ends. It's just like an online thing, and they put crappy, it's a bit like Fortnite, I suppose. They put crappy little side missions in, but this is going to be a proper full Guardians of the Galaxy game. And so far, the previews have been really, really positive, and it's literally only just been I think it's this week actually got announced on Monday. So it's quite apt that we're actually reviewing Volume 2 as this has been announced. So I'd keep an eye out, anybody listening, if you are a gamer, because it has had some great reception with all the gamers.
That's good. I mean, typically, games adapted from movies are usually pretty crappy, aren't they?
Yeah.
But, no, that sounds good to me. I mean, what I'll say, Chris, I think throughout this movie, you've got little bits of Drax, which are fantastic. Like I say, I'm not fully bought into Batista as an actor as a whole, but as Drax, he's got to be one of my favourite characters. And Gunn gives him so many great lines. I mean, even when they're fighting off this massive obelisk, and he purposely gets himself eaten, and everyone's like, what's he doing? Because the skin's just as tough on the inside as it is on the outside, and you see him inside, he's like, ah! trying to cut this thing up and getting nowhere. And it's actually Gamora who takes it down in the end, and he's like, I have single-handedly brought down the beast. I just think he's fantastic. Just all these little lines there, and when they're getting chased, by the whole horde of the fleet of automated ships. And he just puts on his little, I don't know, airtight suit, and he's flying out the back of the ship, and everyone's like, what the fuck's he doing? It's really good the way they use him.
It is, to be fair. And I do love, what I thought it's so stupid, it's sort of my humour, but when Rocket steals the batteries and he shows as they're walking out and he's trying to do that wink, and it's when he just bursts out laughing, that over-the-top fake laugh that he does, Batista, sorry. It's just stupid, but it just works because they're trying to play it as if they haven't stolen anything, and it's like, could you give it away anymore, guys? But that is the whole point of his character. He's got a heart of gold, but he hasn't really got the brains to match up the brawn either. So I think the whole thing works, and I think you're right, James Gunn gives him such a character and a way to steer and be himself and express him. He comes across so well in these two movies.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we've talked about meeting Kurt Russell, for fuck's sake. I need to get at least one person's name wrong, Chris. But they meet Mantis as well. Now, she's actually a human in the comics, but James Gunn wanted to only have Quill as the only kind of human really in the story, so they made her an alien. And I just love that bit where, she has this kind of thing with Drax. And this bit they had given away in the trailers, but basically, she can read feelings and stuff. And so she says to Quill, oh, you have, love, like sexual love for her. and Drax just gives out the biggest belly laugh ever. And he's like... She told your deepest, darkest secret. Do me.
What about, though, Dave, with Drax when he's talking to her, when she comes in and wakes him up, and he's like, I don't find he's trying, and he's trying to be sick, going, he's like, oh, she goes, what are you doing? I'm basically, you make me feel sick,
I'm imagining being with you.
And they're touching your body, and I'm just like, what?
But the best bit, the absolute best bit of that, he's there pretending to vomit because he's thinking of being with her. And she says, I don't like you that way. I don't even like the thing that you are. And he's like, you're getting a bit personal.
Yeah. No awareness of what he's just done. I agree. He's the dialogue there is excellent, Dave. So good again. So good. But I think that's the thing. The comedy stuff, they didn't try and be better than the first one. They just, for me, it just kept it on the same level. Just subtle stuff, like say a bickering family taking the piss. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Now I'm going to throw in something else because I'd remembered Tony had said to me ages ago he really didn't like the sequel, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And so I reached out to him because I was like, you're going to have to remind me. I can't remember exactly why you said you didn't like it. Now, the first one was written by James Gunn and also Nicole Perlman. And the second one was just Gunn himself. Now, Tony's problem with this is that the female characters are just written quite badly. They're written like a 12-year-old boy would write a female character. And I was trying to think. Honestly, Chris, I did enjoy this movie, and I think Tony's got a point there. If you look at the interactions between Gamora and Nebula, it is a little bit thin, isn't it? How Nebula basically she's trying to kill Gamora, and then you find out a little bit more that basically Thanos would get them to do a fight off, and then the loser, which was usually Nebula, would have pieces taken off her, to try and, make her better, I guess. And she's ended up being the $6 million woman kind of thing. So I I don't know. It didn't hinder my enjoyment, to be honest, but I do think Tony's got a point there.
Well, Dave, I will say Mr. Farina, he's such a good guy. If a 12-year-old lad had written it, Dave, when they hug, they'd have been snogging as well, Dave. Let's get that right. Let's be honest, Dave. You know what I mean? When they hug near the end, I agree with Tony on some of it. I understand where he's coming from, but I agree with you. It doesn't ruin it. I've never... You know what? It's an interesting way to watch it. And you know, Tony's so observant with these things, Dave. You know, I never even crossed my mind that at all. I'd probably have to watch it again to see what he means. Or maybe, I mean, it's a hell of a commitment, but watch both of them back to back at some point and go, all right, I understand it. Because I don't get that feeling when I'm watching it, I must admit.
Yeah. But, Chris, I do love there's a little sequence. So, Rocket's busy kind of putting together this ship. Looks like quite a handy tool, that, doesn't it? It's like you're just spraying on the circuitry and everything. But he's getting on with that. And then you've got the Ravagers, and they try and storm the ship kind of thing. I love the little sequence where Rocket kind of sets up all his traps and stuff. And you've got these little... one of the things that Quill used in the first episode, you know, where everyone kind of blows up, but then they come back down. Yeah. It's like a little gravity bomb or something. But he gets captured, doesn't he? And Yondu, basically they commit a mutiny because they call him out the fact that Quill gets away with anything. And again, I think that's a little bit for us, the audience, as well. If you hadn't noticed that bit at the end so much, it's like, well, hang about, why is he letting Quill off with this? He shouldn't, really. So they commit the mutiny. But when Taserface is quizzing Rocket, I've got to say, I mean, the only reason I know this is Bradley Cooper, Chris, is because his name's right there and everyone knows it's Bradley Cooper acting as Rocket. But I can't connect Bradley Cooper to this voice. I think he transforms into Rocket, and I just love the way he's just taking the piss out of Taserface and his name, and he's like, what was your second option? Scrotum hat or something like that. And Taserface like, it's metaphorical. I just thought it was brilliant, and I love Bradley Cooper as Rocket.
Yeah, and I agree. I completely agree. For me, there's only one bit later on where Bradley Cooper's proper voice comes out, Dave, when he has to sort of drop from being that aggressive Rocket. There's one bit later on where I was like, oh yeah, it's Bradley Cooper. But I agree. I think he's acting. He's brilliant. I mean, I've watched the actual him in the studio. I don't know if you've seen it yourself with the headphones on and doing like the actions of Rocket and that. He's brilliant. I mean, I've only ever seen Hugh Jackman come alive as Wolverine when you watch these sort of things. So yeah, Bradley Cooper's excellent. If you get a chance, go on YouTube. It's really good.
Yeah, I should do that. But I tell you what, Chris, when Ego is, you know, describing to Peter about meeting his mother and what have you, I really love those effects that they've got in the background there. You know, where they showed the little... you've got this egg kind of thing, and then it's showing all these graphics of him going to different planets and stuff. I think it looks real.
Yeah, I agree. I think the cinematography in this movie has stepped up from the first one, and the first one's great anyway, Dave. It just sits, because this sits within that Thor Ragnarok like cinematography type, you know, the style and the colour and everything. Yeah. It's all there. It's all that really colourful, cyberpunky, dystopian worlds that they live on. I think it's great. I do. And look, for me, Dave, Chris Pratt is excellent. I think he's sort of second tier behind Thor and, you know, Iron Man, as in the actors, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans. But he's just got that great comedy timing. And that's through doing the other shows he's done in the past. You know, he was on comedy shows and that. But he just has something all the time. And that's also to do with the writing. The writing's excellent. It's not like he's ad-libbing all this. It's just his style of acting and delivering, and the writing just makes him for such a good character.
Yeah, I think so many pop culture references thrown into these movies, isn't there? You know, he's talking about David Hasselhoff being his pretend dad kind of thing. And, you know, when he finds out that he's part God, he's part celestial, he's like, I'm going to make some weird shit. Yeah, when he's dancing with Gamora, he's saying, "Oh, this is like a TV show," and what is it, Three's Company or something like that. Where, you know, again, he's just throwing them out constantly. It's easy to miss them a lot of the time. It's only through multiple watches that you pick these things up. But I mean, you kind of get so it turns a bit, doesn't it? The movie where basically Rocket's been captured, you get Nebula, and then she's got a ship. She's managed to find Ego, and you know, she's basically trying to kill Gamora, and it doesn't look great to me how she kind of escapes there. And then finally, you know, Nebula gets the better of Gamora, and you know, she's like, "I bested you finally," you know, but Thanos wasn't there. And I like this. The theme of this whole movie for me is it's all about family, isn't it? It's about your kind of biological family, but your sort of friend family as well. There's various different relationships through this, so I kind of like that. But that's when they discover all the skulls, isn't it? And they're like, shit, something's going wrong here.
I think as well, though, Dave, when you're seeing what happens, so you get the Gamora and all that stuff, and as you said, Nebula is great. The whole dynamic of it, she's still bad. At that bit when she comes in the ship, though, I know you just mentioned about the fight, but when she comes down on Gamora, it's difficult. It's just like a kamikaze mission from Nebula, isn't it? It's like, I don't care if I kill myself, I'm killing you. But the whole thing with their dynamic and sort of the redemption of the two sisters. And you're right, the family theme of this movie, and I'd never thought of it like that, is brilliant. Because I think Kurt Russell, he's playing the good guy and he's with Peter in it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, he isn't a good guy. And they know, don't they, the Guardians, because they're on this world. Gamora's trying to sort of say to Quill, something's not right. But because it's his dad, he says to him, like, you know, I've never had a family. And she's like, well, we're your family. And she walks off in a huff. And that leads to sort of him and his dad bonding a bit more and talking and everything. But I think what makes the film is when it comes to light that it's basically Ego who killed his mum. You know, so we've seen that table setting at the start, that weird space plant that he puts in Missouri where he's born, not realising that it would have a thing in the film. So when that all unravels and then Quill's powers come, I just love that, Dave. I think it's great. I think the music's great. The fact that the Guardians are running around in the background and Quill thinks he's on a fucking bit of a bonding session with his old man while they're absolutely fighting for their lives. And Yondu comes into himself as well on this. So I really, really think it's so strong, this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's where basically I each time I see it, you know, my heart drops a little bit when he says, you know, about putting the cancer into his mum. And it's like, shit. Everything right up until that moment, you know, you're thinking he's this warm, cuddly dad that he's always wanted, you know, he's his Hasselhoff kind of thing. And it's just stomach churning that moment. And then when he obviously shoots the crap out of him and he ends up, well, if you're not going to do it with me, I'll just use you as a battery then. That's when it all starts to turn, isn't it? But Chris, I've got to say, one of my favourite moments, and again, it's all played for laughs, but you've got Yondu. He's basically a bit fed up, you know, he sort of looks very depressed. He's captured, he's there with Rocket, and, you know, Groot has been doused in beer and stuff by the Ravagers. When they're trying to get Groot to get the prototype fin, oh my God. And he keeps coming back with stuff like a severed thumb, stuff like that. I know it's all played for laughs, and I know, you know, Groot is basically drawn as cute as you could possibly draw someone. I mean, between Baby Groot and Baby Yoda, I mean, come on, Disney, you're just putting too much cuteness in the world. But I just think it's great, and he comes back with all these various things, like a massive table at one point as well, and
so good.
Actually, it's his mate in the end, isn't it? Because Groot would have never got there. It's Sean Gunn who comes with the fin.
Yeah, he does, and I think that's brilliant. Later, when Rocket's telling him about the bomb. And he goes like world, his dimension where they've got to kill him, and the brain of it all. And he's like, right, and it's just because obviously he's so stupid. He's just going, I am Groot, right? Yeah, and then Rocket's going, yeah, and then he goes, and which button do you press? And he's like, no, and this is going on for it, and then Groot just fucks off with it, Dave. So look, I just think the comedy stuff is brilliant. I will say my favourite moment in the first movie over anything is the bit when Rocket gets the gun in the prison and he goes, oh yeah. Oh, Dave, that's a goosebump moment. I just brilliant. And he's on the back of Groot's back and he's firing at everyone. And that is one of them MCU moments that is there. I don't necessarily think we get that in this because it's like, oh, we're not going to get that moment because for me, it's such a brilliant moment in the movie, and it sets Rocket as one of the main characters. And he's so good in the Infinity War, Dave. The first one especially, he's brilliant in that, the Infinity War. He really is good. So this is just, I don't know, it's just great storytelling. It's completely ridiculous, the whole story. And I think everything just knits together at the end really, really well. And I don't know. I mean, I know there's a sequel. They're looking at doing it. There's the chance of 4 and that. But I think this, just telling them 2 origin stories of the family and that is such a good spot that day with the family, with both of them, Gamora and Peter and that. And obviously Peter and that, love him. You've got, even Rocket is realising that Quill's a good guy and all that, even though they all bicker and they're all slay each other. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I like the bit where, Yondu, when he breaks out and he's got his whistling arrow, he basically decimates all these Ravagers. Again, Taserface tells the Sovereign that, where the coordinates are for Yondu's ship, and he tells him, tell him it was Taserface, and she just bursts out laughing at him. But they make these hyperspace jumps. I don't know if they call them hyperspace jumps, but something like that, and you get the funny googly eyes. Did you notice you get your Stan Lee cameo there?
He's on the moon or something with them big guys there, isn't he? Them big monster things.
Yeah, so basically those are like the Watchers. So they kind of don't tend to interfere with anything going on, but usually, in the comics, they turn up when something big was going to happen. So Earth for years had this Watcher called Uatu, and he got killed in the end. So I'm not sure if there's a replacement or anything, but these big things are Watchers. And so again, it gets a little bit meta because, you've got Stan Lee there. He's the storyteller because he's telling these Watchers all his stories and stuff. And I really like this cameo. Whereas a lot of them are a bit throwaway. He's just a guy in the street making a one-liner or something like that. But this one I felt had a deeper meaning because he was talking to the Watchers.
See, I didn't know what they were, Dave. I knew you'd know what they were, obviously, but I didn't know what they were. I just thought it's Stan Lee 101, Dave. And it's nice as well because obviously he wasn't with us for much longer after this movie, was he? So it's nice to get that. I just think he has such a great New York accent. I love that accent of Stan Lee's. It's so distinctive. It just reminds me of the Spider-Man cartoons I watched as a kid, Dave, from the 60s. I absolutely loved them.
Well, I think it's more the 80s. And like the Hulk, you would have watched the Hulk cartoon, and his voice was at the start of that every episode, wasn't he? So, we should go back and watch a couple of those, Chris, for an episode.
We should, definitely.
I wonder how they actually stand up.
I dread to think, Dave, but no, I do them, definitely.
Yeah, but I like where, you essentially get Peter's actual biological father is a bit of a douchebag. And it comes to light, Quill's always felt like Yondu basically kidnapped him. He wanted to eat him, but he only kind of kept him around because he was small and could get into little spaces and pinch things and stuff like that. But it comes to light, I love when Rooker says, I was just being funny, about eating him. It's like, that's not funny at all. But basically, Yondu was doing this whole child trafficking thing for Ego. But when he found out what was going on, he was supposed to pick up Quill and deliver him to Ego, but he didn't do it. He did have a code, but then as far as all the other Ravagers were concerned, he was just child trafficking, and he knew everything was going on. So the fact that you get that reveal, and I love that line. You mentioned about certain moments getting you, Chris, but that line where he's going up and he's saying, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy.
Dave, fucking hell. Yeah, gone, mate. Gone on that, I'll be honest with you. Gone.
Yeah, it's getting me now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's such a great line. But then, of course, the tragedy, Rocket only had, one power pack and one kind of spacesuit thing. And so, he finds out there. He's kind of the dad. His dad that he always wanted was right there this whole time, and he didn't appreciate it, and then he loses him there.
Yeah, big time.
It's emotional.
It is,
stuff.
and I tell you what. From there, Dave. Obviously, they end up like putting him in a burial tomb, don't they? It's an open, not even a casket.
Yeah.
It's an open like bed thing, and they've got a load of like things across his face, sort of like medal type things. And obviously, because we had the dialogue with Stallone about the Ravagers just completely, throwing him under the bus and all that. And when they come back, Dave, that bit gets me because he gets a Ravager's burial.
Yeah.
But I tell you what does get me. It sounds stupid, but the character Sean Gunn plays, Craglin.
Yeah, I know. Me as well.
Really good. Really good. It shouldn't fucking get you, but it does. It's brilliant. It's so good, Dave. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed it at the end.
Now, like you're saying, quick succession, you get all of these real lump in the throat moments. And because he's so happy because he never thought he would get this Ravager's burial, which, it's obviously a big thing. So Sean Gunn's brother, I can't remember what his character's name is, but he's just so happy, isn't he? You just can't help but be taken along by that.
No, it's brilliant. I think it's Craglin, his name is, Dave.
Is it Craglin?
Yeah. No, again, brilliant. And I've got to say, Dave, has there ever been a fucking movie at the end with more end fucking credits? No, luckily on Disney Plus now, which is good, it just says skip credits and it just goes to everyone. There's 4 in there in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? What I do is I move the mouse across, and so I could just get to the bit where it's obviously not credits here.
Ah, right. See, I was doing it on the TV through Sky Q, sorry. So it's on their app, but it just comes up skip. So you just kept skipping, and it was just going straight to the cutscenes. I was like, why the fuck can't you do this in the cinema? Instead of having me sat there for 10 minutes at the end.
Especially in Endgame where there aren't any.
No, the worst one ever is fucking Ant-Man, Dave, the second one. When I said to Sam, there's two end credits. We can't go. And we're fucking watching it, and it went on and on. Then we're even stood at the bottom of the stairs, like in the cinema, talking to the ushers, like chatting away to them. And she's like, and then that fucking ant comes on playing the drums. And you know what Sam's like, Dave? She went, "Is that fucking it?" And I got a right roasting all the way out the cinema. I went, well, I didn't know what it was, So yeah. We've been there, done that.
Well, sometimes you'll have something that moves the story along a bit, and other times it's just a complete throwaway funny thing, isn't it? It's like the shawarma scene in Avengers, or at the end of Iron Man 3 where you've got Tony and you find out he's actually talking to Bruce Banner, and he's like, I'm not that sort of doctor. So I think I like the first one where you've got, like I say, Craglin. Thank you for that. You've got Craglin, and he's playing around with Yondu's telekinetic arrow and control for Finn, and Drax gets it, doesn't he? He's so slowly backing away. And I'm trying to think, what was the second one? You've got Groot as a teenager, haven't you?
Yeah. Which is good because he's having a pop at him and he's saying, like, your room, your vines everywhere and all this. Like, you would have it, and he's like, oh, this is what Yondu used to say to me. So that was pretty good. And then Stallone.
That was such a good line as well. Oh, this is how Yondu felt. And because it is, isn't it, Chris? You know, you don't realise when you're a kid that your parents aren't just there to pick up stuff, and you realise, fucking hell, I'm not just a servant here.
That's very true, Dave. Have you talked about the Sylvester Stallone with getting the gang back together?
Oh yeah, so Stakar Ogord. I'm not sure if they're going to spin off, because we're going to have Guardians of the Galaxy 3. There was obviously that stuff around James Gunn, wasn't there? So that was supposed to come out before the next Thor movie, but they're sort of switching it around, so Thor will come out before Guardians 3. So I don't quite know how this is. Stallone, you would think, would want his own movie, wouldn't he?
You would think so, but he's 70 odd, Dave, isn't he, as well? He's class Stallone. I love him, I follow him and everything, but yeah, I don't think we can get away with it. Ving Rhames there, Dave, another stalwart for Mission Impossible, Pulp Fiction. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, so you got some of the original Guardians of the Galaxy there, because, like I say, the Peter Quill, what we know in the MCU as Guardians of the Galaxy, I think they came around 2008-ish. There was a couple of writers, Abner and Lanning, they put together this team as it is now. So it's very recent that this kind of Guardians of the Galaxy, and the original ones, like you had Yondu in there, and I think this chap as well, that Stallone's playing. So, it was a very different team there. I was going to say side. Watching too much football at the minute. But I tell you what, the one with big ramifications, Chris. So Aisha, I'm sure she the actress was in, was it Mission Impossible, was it?
Yeah.
Or was it Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Oh, no, it's Man from U.N.C.L.E. Man from U.N.C.L.E. That was Henry Cavill. He was in both, wasn't he?
With Cavill, yeah. So, she was out of there, and basically she's getting a bit of stick from one of her, underlings. They're saying this, the councillor saying she's wasting resources. But basically they're growing this perfect being, and she says she's going to call him Adam.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, this is Adam Warlock. I think this is going to be. So this is another cosmic being who can go, toe to toe with Thanos. He's really quite prominent in the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries, which a lot of Infinity War was based on. Adam Warlock played a big role in there. So I don't quite know. You would think maybe Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has got him as a baddie initially, and then he might turn good, or who knows. But yeah, that was quite a big reveal.
No, I remember you said about Adam Warlock ages ago when we first started comics, when you were trying to get me to read stuff, Dave. You know what I mean? You were and that's not taking the piss, but I remember Adam Warlock very well. You're saying how powerful he was, and I think Tony may have mentioned him a few times on some of the shows, and Scott as well. So, no, interesting. So, Dave, shall we get into our review score?
Let's go.
So, Dave, I'll go first on this one. Really, really enjoyed it. I'm so glad that we've sort of finished out the current Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movies. Really excellent. I don't necessarily think it's as good as the first one. I still think it's a great movie. I really enjoy the jokes. And like you said, there's loads of references, pop culture references in this, and loads of little in-jokes that if you know, you know. And I just think it's great. It moves the MCU along. It's basically proper... It instills the Guardians of the Galaxy within the MCU. They're sort of peripheral figures. I know in the Avengers they are, but they are important in the MCU, and I'd love to know what's going to happen in this next phase and after the next movie, where they sit or what's going to happen. But no, really, really good day. I'm going to send it to Atlantis. I'm so pleased we've done it, and I really, at some point, we need to speak to Tony, because I'd love to speak to him about this, because that's just really got me what he said about the portrayal of the ladies in it. I think I really need to sort of watch both of them again.
Yeah, and I think Tony's probably a bit more aware of this as well, reads lots and lots of books and analyses stories and storytelling as well. So I think probably what sometimes washes over you and I, maybe Tony will pick up on. Now, I have to say, I still thoroughly enjoyed it, though, despite all, that kind of negative aspect to it. I don't think it's as good. I think the strong start is let down a bit by a bit of a lull in the middle. You do get, some comedic moments, some comedic lines throughout, but it does seem to drag along a little bit in the middle. And I think, the pacing just doesn't quite feel uniform for me. Whereas the first one seems so tight. You were never ever sort of wondering, okay, come on, could we move it along a bit now? So I think the music was top notch again. Some great choices in music, like I say, all the pop culture references makes you kind of think back. It almost makes you think, Chris, in the generation that we are in, are we basically the perfect age group to watch and appreciate this movie and the jokes in this movie?
Yeah.
Because my kids enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but they don't know who David Hasselhoff is, despite my shrine out.
I was going to say, even when we were in the band, Dave, I mean, I love the Hoff, but your appreciation was the next level to mine. That I remember you sending me that, was it Driving My Car song? It was fucking, jump in my car. Jump in my car. That one, yeah. I remember it well, Dave.
You know what? I was right, at work. This is probably getting on 15 years ago or something now. One of the girls in the office had left a PC open. Now, Chris, I don't know if people at your work do this, and I've not done this for a while, but, you're supposed, especially if you work in an environment where your electronic signature and password kind of means something, leaving your PC unguarded and unlocked is not a good move. So, I remember at one, I put like, message one person to the other, I love you, or something like that, but this one, me and this chap, Simon, we spent ages like Googling pics of David Hasselhoff and put together this whole like mural kind of thing, with front and centre, the middle picture was Hasselhoff, when he's got his leather jacket and his black undies. That was right in the middle of the desktop. Oh, it was glorious. I loved it. But I did have a bit of an obsession with the Hoff, didn't I?
He's still a man. Well, I did look at how much he charges for cameos, Dave, and what we're going to have to do is when he says a cameo to someone, call Dave, I'll copy that video and send it you and say I've paid for it, because I'm not. It's about $1,000 a thing to get him to say something to you. So
Jesus Christ,
I had looked at that, my friend, at one point to send it you as a surprise. But when I saw the price, Dave, just take the thought of me actually looking at David Hasselhoff's cameos.
Some of them aren't bad. Some of the footballers aren't too bad. But like fucking Keith from The Office, he's like 40 quid. Yeah. It's like, look, mate, you're Keith from The Office. You're a bit funny on a peripheral way. But anyway, Chris, I need to give my score, don't I? So I still really enjoyed it, and I do think it is still rewatchable. I think I'd probably prefer to watch this in YouTube format, you know what I mean? So, like, watch the beginning. I think the beginning is absolutely excellent, and some of the moments in it as well. But, like I say, I can't really forgive it too much for that lull in the middle. So I'm going to put it in Atlantis as well, but it's not the highest Atlantis. Still very watchable, but not one of the strongest in the MCU.
Good stuff, Dave, good stuff. So, if you want to contact us, guys, at Comics in Motion P, get over to the podcast feed because we've got so many good shows on there from different people, all sorts of comic book taste for every single person, hopefully, and really, really great production on there and just really nice people as well. So get over there, guys. Have a look on our Comics in Motion feed on your podcast catching app. If you want to email us, the Comics in Motion podcast @gmail.com. Now, next week, Dave, we have Hugh Jackman in his white vest once again, my friend, I believe.
Yeah, so it's been a little while since we've done Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, isn't it? And we thought we'd get on Ryan from the Talking Snicked podcast. So yeah, next week we'll be doing The Wolverine, which was the second out of that trilogy. And let's get into the trailer.
Hey everyone, my name is Hugh Jackman. Please check out this brand new launch trailer from The Wolverine.
Run!
Thank you.
It's beautiful, Yoshida. Keep it safe for me. Someday I'll come get it.
My employer is dying. He wants to thank you for saving his life all those years ago. It's an honor to meet the Wolverine.
That's not who I am anymore.
After the war, the Yashida family business became Japan's largest. He made advances that have saved millions of lives.
I want to offer you a gift, Logan. You have struggled long enough. Your ability to heal can be passed to another. Allow someone else to shoulder your burden. Logan-san, I can make you mortal. Trust me, Bob. You don't want what I've got. I'm not ready to die.
You're bleeding.
Just keep moving. I'm not healing. She did this to me.
This flesh is weak now.
Hey, Bob.
What are you?
A chemist, a capitalist, a viper.
So you can see the future.
I saw you die.
We will accept your surrender with respect. Is that all the men you brought? Your grandfather called me a Ronin. A samurai without a master. Who has no reason to live.
Was he right?
Oh, it's brilliant that, Dave. I can't wait. Again, it gives me another excuse to open that Adamantium Blu-ray edition I've got. But I will say, though, Dave, seeing as though I've talked and talked as usual and I'm sort of rambling again, what are you going to take us out with today, my friend?
I am Groot.
There was no research on that whatsoever, Dave. But anyway, see you next time.
Bye now.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Renshaw.
James Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
What in the ass?
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne.
Would you care to step outside?
Come to me, son of Jor-El! Kneel before Zod!
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Batman.
Whoa!
Hey!